Assalamu alaikum everybody. I will begin Ziyarat al-Shura. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulullah. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن السيد الوسيم. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا صار الله وابن صاره والوتر الموتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله. أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله لقد أزمت الرزية وجلت وأزمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام. وجلت وأزمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت. ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم. ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. فرئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله إني سلم لمن صالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان. ولعن الله بني أمية كاتبا. ولعن الله ابن مرجانا. ولعن الله عمر بن سعد. ولعن الله شمرا. ولعن الله أمة نسجت وألجمت وتنكبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد أزم مصابي بك. فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب صارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونسب لك الحرب وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم. وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس الظالم وبني عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن صالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله وأن يرزقني طلب الصار مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم بالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يؤتيني بمصابيبكم أفضل ما يؤتي مصابا مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تنال منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللئين ابن اللئين على لسانك ولسان نبيك في كل موطن وموقف وكف فيه نبيك. اللهم العن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك لعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم خزائف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيامي حياتي بالبراءة منهم ولعنتي عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم الآن أفضل ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم العن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم العنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم الآن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم الآن يزيد خامسا، والآن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانا وعمر بن سعد والشمراء وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers, sisters. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Requesting brothers Zunair to please invite the next reciters. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat.
Please invite Brother Abbas Maklai for youth presentation. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat.
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Betrayal by the Kufans set this moon on its course, calling out for their guide, treachery with no remorse, Muslim and his sons. What a tragedy, oh what calamity, the moon bleeds to foresee, the moon bleeds to foresee. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. It saw the 6-month infant, no water but an arrow. That night it shone light on Rabab filled with such sorrow. To see my Azhar I crave. I hear nothing but his cries. O son, please do not arise. And with his mother sympathize. And with his mother sympathize. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Witnessed in the trampling on Sham-e Ghariba, saw that night the terror, bodies scattered so far, tents looted and on fire, earrings snatched from Ruqayya, the moon also in such pain, this household bound in chains, this household bound in chains. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. From this month my Bibi had to wander veilless. Zahra's grave is restless, for her daughter princess, the cloak of purity. For this mother so holy, the beloved of Fatima, paraded in the bazaar, paraded in the bazaar. The moon of Muharram, times of sadness have come. The crescent has now arrived, casting gloom on Karbala, casting gloom on Karbala. Bar Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat.
We'd like to invite Brother Hassan Nayani for salam. Bar Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat.
Bar Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat. खुशनुदी इमाम ज़माना बुलंदतर सलावत अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद ए चांद करबला के ए चांद करबला के तूने तो देखे होंगे उतरे थे इस ज़मीं पर عرش بری کے تارے اے چاند کربلا کے اے چاند جلوہ گر ہے ہاشم کا چاند یہاں پر خیرات روشنی کی لے لیجیو یہاں سے اے چاند اس زمیں پر رکھیو ہمیشہ ٹھنڈک سوتے جو ہیں یہاں پر زہرا کے ہیں یہ پیارے اے چاند کربلا کے تسلیم و سلسبیلو کوثر کے ہیں یہ مالک مارے گئے جو پیاسے اس نہر کے کنارے حر اور حبیب جیسے جاں باز اور احبا مارے گئے یہیں پر انصار شاہدین کے مارے گئے یہیں پر بے دردیوں ستم سے زینب کے دونوں پیارے مسلم کے دونوں بیٹے اے چاند کربلا کے پامال ہو رہی تھی قاسم کی لاش رن میں عباس اور سرور چنتے تھے ان کے ٹکڑے بازو کٹے یہیں پر عباس با وفا کے اذن وغا نہ پایا پانی بھلا نہ پائے اے چاند करबला के और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात.
I'd like to invite CFK Executive Director, Brother Mazhar Ali, for some announcements. For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Salawat.
Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Salawat. I know this is our first day. Just the emotions themselves start to catch up with you because you realize you're gathered together today. Last year we were all at home. So just a few announcements and a special favor. I know the room is long and it's easy to just come in and sit down. But going forward, if you can just at least come up to the member to show the respect of the azah that you have. That's one of the key things you can do for your children is to be the first one to walk up to the front. If you decide to sit in the back, your kids will do the same. And then one day they won't even come in the door. So please, I'm making this announcement so that you hear me loud and clear. We have to start doing things that we want our kids to do, or otherwise they won't do it at all. So let us start with making taking this opportunity. The reward for coming together, may Allah make that stronger, make that better for you. The aspect of azah, truly coming together on these nights, inshallah, may your faith be strengthened and your spirituality elevated. Our program schedule each night, we have tried to accommodate based on knowing that our families have activities going on in the morning. Most parents are working in that way. So inshallah, our programs will start at 6:45 with ziyarat, and then 7:20, inshallah, we'll have Shaykh ascending the member. We do have a program for young kids, 5 to 7. It's a registration program for the kids to come to camp. The way we have designed this for you is first come, first serve. Inshallah, for the first couple of nights, we'll have 1 room, and then after that, we'll have 2 rooms. But again, everything is dependent upon what's going on. You've seen the message earlier today. The Delta variant is very fluid for us. It's a very fluid situation. All of us want to come together. It's an emotional time. Everybody has an opinion. I'm sure you're experiencing that at work. You're experiencing that at school with all the school registration going on. And so is CFK. And we ask you humbly to listen to our advice and our guidance. We are going to try to get volunteers here to help us. But this is a very collective organization, so your help is required. We would like to check temperatures. We want to make sure that people are vaccinated. Unfortunately, I've already been told stories where people are saying that, hey, I'm not vaccinated, but I'm coming anyways. So unfortunately, what that means is I have to punish everybody because 1 or 2 people think it's necessary not to get vaccinated and still attend the program. So just keep that in mind. That's why we're doing the registration form. It's a very simple thing, just a name, number, and telephone number. But we did have a situation in Eid where somebody was positive, didn't realize it, showed up. Thankfully, they were wearing a mask and didn't pass it on. But you never know, the situation could be different. And if we need to get in touch with people, we'd like to know who do we need to contact. And if you're at least registered, then we are at least making it that much easier for our volunteers. If you have any questions about the registration process, come and see me personally. I know my EC members have put together a lot of hard work to put this together to make it easier, but if you have any concerns or if there's a way to make it better or easier, just let me know and happy to take that information back to the team. Our budget, you will see that we do not and will not stand here and try to do fundraising. That is not our goal. That's not our objective. We don't want to have to hold the program hostage on the 8th or 9th of Muharram to say, hey, please give us funds for the entire year. Our model is sustaining members. If you attend programs at CFK, City of Knowledge, then we would love for you to be a member. Inshallah, we will continue to share information about becoming members. That takes care of our operating expenses. Our expenses for Muharram are outside of operating expenses. This is the expenses for bringing the alim here, for having the niyaz, the tabarruk, having the activities that we have coordinated for all of you. Based on the program committee's outline of services for the entire month of Muharram and Zafar, that's looking to be about $25,000. So what I'd like for you to do is go online. There are squares to fill out. Take one, take two, take as many as you feel is necessary. Month of Muharram and Zafar. So when we have sustaining members, I know, alhamdulillah, I know many of you are, that takes care of your needs on a daily basis here at the center. The other aspect of it is the additional program that we're doing, specifically for the months of Muharram and Zafar. Those costs are all enumerated for you. If you have any questions, come and see me and we can talk through that. And with that, let me ask you to recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's program sponsors. For all marhumin, Brother Aftab Bhojani and family, and Anjum Abbas, daughter of Syed, Zafar Abbas Rizvi, sister Noveen, Fatima and family, and the marhumin of Kul Mu'mineen, Mu'minat, and Muslimin and Muslimat. In past years, we've tried to encourage our own culture development. My hope is that when we get together in these nights, that we provide that same type of energy and enthusiasm for the next generation. So over the coming nights, we will start to implement certain changes, and we encourage you to be part of this program to be able to help us with the information. At this time, I'd like to say that we're absolutely honored and privileged to have Maulana Mahdi for our first Ashra. He has been here before and has many close friends in the audience. For those of you that are new to the community, and I know many people are still moving here, and getting to meet the Shaykh for the first time, Shaykh Mahdi is currently pursuing a doctoral studies in the Department of Theology and Religious Studies at Georgetown University. Raised in Maryland, he earned his Bachelor's of Science in Information Systems from the University of Maryland, and upon graduation, he spent 9 years studying Islamic Seminary of Qum, earning a bachelor's and master's in Islamic Studies and Jurisprudence with a minor in philosophy. Shaykh serves the Muslim community both in the Washington, D.C. metro area and throughout North America. And his topic, thank you for choosing this, is mashallah wonderful, building Husseini community to become the community that serves the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Maulana, it's a pleasure to have you back. I know we are here very much looking forward to your lecture. And with that, in the true spirit of CFK, let's invite Maulana to the member with 3 loud salawats. Allahumma salli ala. We don't do that.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة على رسول الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين عليهم السلام. السلام عليك يا أبا صالح المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. My dearest brothers and sisters, respected ulama, I first want to begin by asking permission from the host of this majlis that has allowed each and every one of us tonight, and inshallah we pray the following nights to come in the gathering, the commemoration, the azah of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam, and his loyal companions. Of course, we are facilitators of this majlis, and we are immensely privileged to come gather in person. So I want to thank you for extending that invitation. But I also want to draw our attention again to the fact that we are not the hosts of this majlis, and we are not the hosts of any of the majalis that we have. We are simply facilitators. And in being a facilitator, again, there's a great honor, and there's a great privilege. But Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam are the hosts. And we believe in the connection that we make with the Ahlul Bayt alayhi wassalam has become that we request permission from the host of the majlis, Lady Fatima salamullah alayha, to grant us that entry, and we thank her for that opportunity. So I want to just draw attention to that because I think it's really important for what we'll be discussing together. And I know the presentation style is lecture. I'm going to be speaking because the mic is closest to me. But the objective here is for us to engage in conversation. Now the conversation may not happen when I'm sitting on the minbar, but I hope that it happens after I come down for us to practice whatever distance that we need to, but for it to be a form of conversation, a form of discussion, and a form of dialogue. Why is that important? Because I feel like when we gather together in every gathering, right, there's an opportunity. In every symbol that we venerate, and there's no doubt that these gatherings, this love, this connection that we have towards Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu, this is one of the symbols, one of what we call sha'a'irullah. The person who venerates, the person who honors the sha'a'ir of Allah, فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. This is a sign, it's a recognition, demonstration of the practice of taqwa in their self. What does that mean? It means that when we come here, one element of what we do is, of course, is that we recall and we review the story of Ahlul Bayt, the story of the journey of the caravan from Medina to Medina and after, and how the world is changed and how Islam is revived. That's one part of it. There should never be a dismissal of that. There should never be a belittling of that. But we have to remember that that is an invitation for us to also participate in something more. And the more is trying to get at kind of the point, the larger point of all of this. So again, these majalis are born out of intentional instruction and construction of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. It's not just that we all decided, wow, this is such a sad event and we should gather every year for 10 days to commemorate it. Because there are many sad events in the world and throughout history, but we don't commemorate this way. So we've been taught to commemorate this way by Ahlul Bayt. The question is, what is it that we are expected to achieve by coming together? However many of us that are here, there's something that Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam want us to achieve as being participants in these majalis. That's what I'd like us to kind of grapple with over the 10 nights that we have. And the kind of the theme that I found would be appropriate, I won't say I didn't choose it, but I thought it was an appropriate theme given the interactions that I've had with this community specifically, but also a broader observation of the religious landscape, Islamic landscape, Shia landscape, whatever you want to call it, within America. It kind of calls for these types of conversations. So the theme that Brother Masar mentioned, developing a Husseini community or building a Husseini community. Again, it's hard for me to be the auditor of where we are in that process. And I don't have the answers to say we are in the development stage, we are in the building stage, we are in the maintenance stage. You all know better than I. But community, that last part of it, I think is the most important part of what we're doing. What does it mean for us to build and maintain community? Number one, you may say, brother, that's a nice topic, but how does it connect? I want to propose that if we look to the statements of Imam Hussein والسلام, as he's leaving Medina, we can find this central message of Islah, of a reform or a correction or a return, to be the reason that gives meaning to everything that he's doing. And I want to propose that this Islah, this reform, is the reformation of the Islamic community as established by the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. So in coming together, what the Imam is doing is he is being the leader in a process of reforming and returning to a prophetic community. So it's important for us to understand what this concept is, and then the building blocks of building, developing, and maintaining that. Now, this discussion can get very theoretical very quickly. It can get incredibly complex. And in my kind of preparation and note-taking and reading, I went through a few different kind of phases. I read the literature pretty far and wide, contemporary literature on community building, community development. I found it too complex. I confused myself. I had a hard time of rendering it into a form that I thought was digestible, so I abandoned that part of it. But the practical tips, and every night we will cover at least one practical element towards the development, building, and maintenance of a Husseini community. So let us, inshallah, start this journey with the intention of coming as participants and as contributors towards this goal, inshallah, with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, alhamdulillah. Now that we're all excited, let's jump in. Why is this discussion important? There are two different lenses that we can look at this issue of the construction, development of community. Number one is we want to call it non-religious, a-religious, or secular way. In my kind of brief study of the literature of community building, community development, there are a few points that these authors draw our attention to that make this kind of journey really important. Number one, isolation is on the rise. Now, that's a very accessible idea to us right now in the era of COVID. We are isolated because we have to be, because it's dangerous. Okay, let's bracket that just for a moment. The isolation that we're talking about is not that. This is a consequence of circumstances that we find ourselves. Isolation on the rise is how we are evolving our lifestyles to meet with the demands of modern life. Isolation on the rise means that we have more opportunities to connect, but we find ourselves in less interactions, especially in the kind of physical, of the physical kind. The technology allows us to connect to most people, if not all people in the world, sometimes even at a grand and a massive level. And all of that is a kind of a precursor towards communicating effectively and efficiently and developing relationships. But the studies are showing us that though we have the potential to deepen connections, we are challenged by building and maintaining strong relationships with one another, and that's a consequence of the isolated lifestyle that we are adopting. Again, this is not you and I coming together and saying, wouldn't it be nice if we were always home? No. We are naturally responding to that. Many of us may be teleworking now. We don't even have to spend the time driving anymore, although we would hope autonomous cars and autonomous driving would be here by now. Our textbooks, when I was in grade school, told us we would be the cars would be flying at this point. They're not flying, but we would hope at least they would drive us. So we're working from home. Then the schools may be closed, or the schools are inefficient. The schools are not, they don't respond to the needs that we have. So the kids may be home. They may be homeschooled. Our work hours are so long because the work that we do is so demanding that when it does come time for us to relax and enjoy the free time, we have to spend that time to recover. And then because we have these other kind of social networks that give us the illusion of connection, we find ourselves satisfied. Anyone is accessible with the click of a button or a few motions. That's the security, it's the false sense of security and connection that we get from these technologies. But that's different from having strong relationships. So isolation, number one, is on the rise. Individualism is on the rise. Number two, interest and practice in restoring communities are also increasing. Which means this. We may hear it under different names in larger society. We may hear it in the name of civic engagement. We may hear the name of organizational outreach, democracy projects, community relations. Larger society has come to the point that there's a need to build community. Number three, institutional awareness of the need for community is growing. And when we say institutional here, what this defaults to in a society that we live in that is a capitalist society is that the capitalist institutions are now coming to this realization that building community, and another way of saying that is building brand, is a powerful way of increasing their reach and increasing their profits, increasing their sales. So now there's a shift towards the construction of these communities, right? So in different realms that we look at, they have communities of their own. If you own a certain type of car, you belong to a community, right? Tesla drivers, you belong to a community, especially those of you who got in early. It's exclusive. It's privileged. I don't know how much prestige there is with it anymore, but there may be. When it comes to fitness and exercise, even the apparel that we wear, all of these, the construction of a certain type of community. Okay, so these are the communities right now that are being built in larger society, and there is a recognition that building of community is important to kind of pursue certain ends. So the secular literature is telling us that we need to work more effectively towards building community, but to what end? And what can solve the problem of bringing people together? Like I said, one way of looking at it is to say that technology can do it for us. And when this question is asked, this is what the literature tells us. In one of the books that's written by the author, Peter Block, he has a book called Community, The Structure of Belonging. It says the main point of his book is this, that the strong cultural imperative of individualism and the belief that science and technology will solve the problems of climate, a major issue of our generation and following generations, corporate productivity, school performance, customer satisfaction, and immorality will only increase the violence, poverty, and unnecessary suffering that we are confronted with every day. So to put our stock in science and technology resolving these problems for us, he is arguing, is wishful thinking, because it's not. These are simply tools that work to serve our ends. They run the programs that we write. Until artificial intelligence actually evolves to the point where it's thinking for its own and developing its own, they are still executing programs that we write. So we are still the architects. So science and technology is a part of the solution. It is not the solution. Let's come back real quick. For many of us, we feel the need of the construction of strong community. We feel it. because the gaps are observable. Many of them, you cannot miss it. But what is the solution to that? And what gives us comfort that not acting right now is okay because there is still time? And creating the solution is easier than we think. A lot of times, it's the false confidence that we put in these technologies. We can do it so easy. Turning to an Islamic lens now. Why is the discussion of community building in a locale really important, and how does it relate to this commemoration? Okay, let's go to the words of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. He said a lot of things, right? Though in the grander scheme, we wish anything that was uttered from the mouths of these individuals was transcribed. The reality is that it was not, or if it was, much of it is lost. So we have only bits and pieces. But what has been said is so powerful that if we use those, it's more than enough. So here are some of the observations that the Imam is making. I wonder how many of us are thinking about what the Imam is saying in these 10 nights. The Imam laments, إِنَّ هَذِهِ الدُّنْيَا قَدْ تَغَيَّرَتْ وَتَنَكَّرَتْ. Says, indeed, this world has changed, and it's changed for the worse. وَأَدْبَرَ مَعْرُوفُهَا, and its good has retreated. It's turned its back. فَلَمْ يَبْقَ مِنْهَا إِلَّا صُبَابَةٌ كَصُبَابَةِ الْإِنَاءِ وَخَسِيسُ عَيْشٍ كَالْمَرْعَ الْوَبِيلِ. It regards good, larger society, as something bitter. It's supposed to taste sweet. Or there remain only dregs like the dregs in a jar, sordid nourishment like unhealthy fodder. So the Imam is already saying, what we have accessible to us as means of nourishment, they're poor. The world that we're living in is one that is not conducive towards building a certain type of life. ألا ترون أن الحق لا يعمل به وأن الباطل لا يتناهى عنه. So this is a concept that's more familiar to us because it's one of the central themes. It says, can you not see that the truth is no longer something that individuals practice, and the falsehood is something that is no longer desisted from? The inversion of good and evil, right? That those things which are good, their virtues, they're seen in society as being archaic. You and I know this, right? You have to be smart in the world, right? So if you're too honest, honesty is seen as a form of naivete. Brother, you're too honest. You're simple. This is not how the world works. So look, honesty, which is a virtue, is now seen as something outdated, archaic, and you have to change if you want to survive in this world. So this inversion is there. لِيَرْغَبَ الْمُؤْمِنُ فِي لِقَاءِ اللَّهِ مُحِقًّا, so that the believer rightly desires to meet Allah. So he says the believer is also in a painful state to observe this in the world. Okay. So the Imam is making that observation and he's drawing you into, are you seeing what I'm seeing? So if we have the affirmation then, the Imam then says, this is my course of action. فَإِنِّي لَا أَرَى الْمَوْتَ إِلَّا سَعَادَةً وَلَا الْحَيَاةَ مَعَ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا بَرَمًا. So I can only regard death as martyrdom, as a success, as a victory, and life with these oppressors as a tribulation. Now, quickly, we don't want to go to this point of, well, I don't want to live anymore, so I'm going to become incredibly depressed. I'm going to become, a nihilist. There's nothing to live for. I just want quickly for Allah to bring my death to me. No, that's not what the Imam is saying. The Imam is not thrown in the towel. That's not what he's done. Sometimes, because of the extent of what is wrong in the world, many of us say, okay, well, we can't do anything, and we already have this, eschatology, end of time narrative. The Imam will return, of course, so what's to do in the meantime? Throw in the towel. No. But what he's saying is that life with these kind of people, with these oppressors, barama, it's tribulation. Inna nasa abidu dunya. Indeed, the people are servants, slavers of the world. وَالدِّينُ لَعْقٌ عَلَىٰ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ. And the deen, the religion, the practice, Islam, it is a slaver on their tongues. يَحُوطُونَهُ مَا دَرَّتْ مَعَايِشُهُمْ فَإِذَا مُحِسُّ بِالْبَلَاءِ قَلَّتْ دَيَّانٌ. So they turn away from it whenever their livelihood demands them to. Anytime there is a conflict between choosing between deen and dunya, correct practice, virtuous practice, and their livelihood, they prefer the latter. And the Imam says, if they are examined by these misfortunes, the religious people will truly be very little. So, let's take a little pause here, and I know it's been a little difficult because there hasn't been much variety here, no stories so far to mix things up. I promise tonight is going to be the night that we lay the foundation. From tomorrow, it's going to be much easier. We have to lay the foundation tonight because the rest of these 9 nights are dependent on that. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Thank you. Okay. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this is the observation the Imam is making. So he's being critical. This is his criticism. So what the Imam does, his journey, his mission, his message, is all responding to the criticism that he has of the world that he lives in. Okay, now, what does this have to do with community? You see, brother and sister, we have to ask ourselves, and this is one of those questions you may have to think about throughout these 10 days. And I encourage you to do so. It's not one thing that you figure out and you're done. For the younger people, I know the way that we teach Islam is usually it's like a fact. It's statements of fact. If you learn this once, then you've learned it. You don't need to worry about it anymore. It's not true. These are concepts that they have a depth in our understanding. That's why we keep revisiting them. Okay. So here's a basic question. What was the point of the prophetic presentation of Islam? What was the Prophet trying to get at? If someone asks you, what did your Prophet come and do? Well, the first thing you'll quickly say is that he established or re-established pure monotheism. Great, fantastic, Tawheed. Excellent. How did he do that? Well, he had to struggle. There were people who were practicing different ways. They weren't very open to this new change, and there was some tension there. Okay. What was the result then? What did he accomplish? What did he accomplish? So if you said he established pure monotheism, he either did that at a theoretical level, that means he told the people, by the way, this is polytheism, this is not correct monotheism. Monotheism is this way. And you should pray this way, and you should say these things, and you should do these rituals. So if that's what we say the Prophet did, and that was kind of the objective, he was successful, he came and said those things, he instituted certain practices, and he died. Success. But the story of Islam and the story of the Prophet is not just that. He didn't just bring a series of doctrines and introduce a series of rituals. Those were a part of it, and they're important parts. But when we read the Quran, much of what we're reading is what? We're reading the story of a people that through their ups and downs and the ebbs and flows, they created and constructed a Muslim community. Right? These are what all the stories are about. Because the Prophet on day one could have just said, I'm the messenger of God. Here's my miracle, by the way. Remember, the Quran speaks about this. The Prophet from time to time, it says, the request, it would just be so easy. I could just have a miracle that would silence all of these critics once and for all, and they would know that I am sent from God, and this is the correct belief, and that's it. It doesn't take all of this. There's no need for all of this heartbreak and difficulty. So we understand then, through that the point was not just for the Prophet to come and say certain things and to show us certain types of rituals. It was to build people by being in relationship with them. Now, if you have a really, really intelligent, with great potential individual, let's say you're a supervisor, you're a manager at work, you have one kid, one young person, man, woman, that's really sharp. Before you even finish your sentence, they know what you're saying, and they do even more than that. How long is it going to take? How much effort is it going to take for you to train them and for them to do what you want them? Minimally. Then compare them to a person who is completely lost, doesn't know what day of the week it is. You explain one thing, and by the second task, they've forgotten the first. How much time and effort is it going to take for you to train them? Much more, right? So the Prophet worked with a people that included both very intelligent people with great aptitudes, really quick from the first day. They were there on the front lines. They figured things out. They were committed. You had people on the other end of the spectrum, still towards the end of the day, is not really sure what was what. And then you have all the kind of the stages and degrees in the middle. The role of the Prophet was to do what? Was to create this community. And because the role of the Prophet was to create this community, there was a love that he had, and it was also, I don't know if anxiety is the right word, but it was a concern that he had. And this is very clear in the Quran. I'll just state two examples. Look, when you care about people, you conduct yourself differently from saying, this is my job, I did my job. I don't care if they understand it or not. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ. First thing, certainly a messenger has come from amongst yourselves. So anfusikum can at least have two layers of meaning. Number one is from amongst yourself, meaning from your local area, from your locale. We didn't send him from a different country, a different part of the world. We didn't send him from a different planet either. Right? So he's just like you. He looks like you, he talks like you, he dresses like you, he eats like you, he's all of those things. But the second level of meaning is that we send someone from amongst you. That means someone that cares for you. Someone who's from that same flesh and blood. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. Grievous to him is your distress. See, for a parent, whatever happens to their child, you amplify it and multiply, that's what the parent feels. Your child falls down and they hurt their leg, they cry. The parent's probably not going to start crying too. They want to comfort the child. But the parent feels that pain inside for what their child experienced. It's difficult for them to witness and observe. So for the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, grievous to him is your distress. Listen, when I'm struggling, it's difficult for the Prophet to experience that. Right? We're moving now from a conception of community that is just a collective of people. We all are standing together and praying. What you're thinking and what you're going through is not my business. We share in an activity of bowing and prostrating. The Prophet, though, for him, what he cares about, when you come to the prayer and you're off, you don't look right, he's going to figure out what's wrong with you. It bothers him. It concerns him. Harisun alaykum. He has deep concern for you. Bil-mu'minina ra'ufun rahim. He is most kind and merciful to the believers. So this is the standard that the Prophet is setting. Throughout the Quran, the stories that you hear, this is the Prophet. The Prophet wants everyone to elevate themselves. He wants everyone to be victorious. He wants everyone to be happy in life. So community gets to the point that what? Community gets to the point that every member feels this way towards one another. That's so high, brother. That's, it's a little utopian. Are you kidding me? I can barely figure out what's going on in my life. Now you expect me to know how everyone else is feeling and then it should bother me too? Please, I already bought my plot. Just go bury me right now, right? It's too hard. But that's the standard. That's the goal. That's the goal. Second example, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. You are liable to imperil your life, the Quran is saying, out of grief for their sake, if they should not believe this discourse. Now, belief of the discourse, you say for disbelievers, this is all made up. You made it up. You dreamt this. You hallucinated this, right? Kind of like contemporary readings of what is it that the Prophet experienced. Was he hallucinating? Maybe he was, I don't know, from a psychological, maybe he was hallucinating, I don't know. So you have one level. We don't think that way. We've accepted him already as a messenger of God. But to believe this discourse means what? For you and I. Doesn't mean we're going to throw the Quran away. But it's that conviction to what the Prophet and what the Imam is calling us towards. So again, the Quran is saying that, oh Prophet, you're on the verge of kind of destroying yourself, your health, your mental health, all those things that we're saying. That's how difficult it is for you to observe this community, be in relationship with this discourse this way. All right. So now let's move to the Imam. Let's move to the Imam. What does Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam say about his mission? You've heard this will that he writes to his brother, Muhammad al-Hanafiya. We may have read it, we may have heard it, even parts of it. But there's that one statement that's very famous. I'm just going to mention it to review because it's important as to the point that we're making here. So many people ask the Imam not to go. You have alternatives. You have alternatives. You can stay here. We can resist. We can gain support. We can go into hiding. All these different things. We will support you. The Imam says, I have to do this. And this is the kind of the reasoning that he brings. So he says, وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Okay. اللهم صل على محمد. This small snippet says, I am leaving this area, my home, in the pursuit of Islah. Islah of Ummah, right? Ummah. Ummah. Ummah is what we call the Quranic rendering of community. There's a difference, and hopefully there will be a time to study that. What does the Quran say about Ummah? What are the characteristics of Ummah? For example, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرُ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. Oh, you are the best nation that was brought forth to humankind. It's pretty tough. But that's what the Quran says. So he says, I am going in pursuit of this reform, this correction, this return to the ummah of my grandfather. Ummah, community. I'm returning, I'm leaving in pursuit of the reestablishment of this ummah. He didn't say I'm going so that people will gather and pray. He didn't say I'm going so people will go and do the Hajj. He didn't say I'm going so people will pay the zakat. He didn't say I'm going so people will do the fast. Again, not to say those things are not important. They are important. And there's a correct way of doing it. With tawheed, with wilayah, all that stuff. But his pursuit is the reestablishment of ummah, community, right? Community. What was that community? Here, this is what, like I said, that secular literature, I don't know, maybe those people are religious, but their writing is not religiously informed. This is what one of these authors writes about community. He says, I define community as a group of individuals who share a mutual concern for one another's welfare. One another's welfare. It's distinct from a group of people who may share ideas, interest, proximity, or any number of things but lack concern for one another. Do you see that qualification at the end? Ideas, interest, proximity. Proximity. Ideas, interests. All of them are there, but it's not community until and unless everyone is concerned for the welfare of the other. You and I can come and do azah and cry and leave. It's meritorious. There is thawab, for sure. I'm not the one to police that. I'm a nobody. But I would like to say that's different from community. From when I come, do azah and leave, and I don't know the person beside me, what's going on with them. So that's community. What does Imam Hussein alayhi salam do? We'll end with this. Let me give you a few examples. We'll open these up in the later nights. We're talking about the return of the prophetic sunnah, right? Of the statements that the Imam makes, time after time after time again, he's trying to get people to snap out of it. That because just like the Prophet cares, and it bothers him and it's difficult for him to just ignore and look the other way and concern himself with his affairs, he's always going after people. You've heard these stories, and we'll mention them. The Imam's caravan and another person's caravan are kind of traveling at the same time. I don't want the Imam to see me. I'm going to set up my camp somewhere else. If the Imam looks my way, I'm going to turn away. If the Imam comes to me, I'm going to run away. So what's the Imam doing? Look, on the day of Ashura, what does Imam say? Even the statements he's making moments before his martyrdom. You may say from a utilitarian standpoint, what is he doing? They're already there. They're going to martyr him. It's just moments. Why is he asking these things? Some may even think he's belittling himself. Oh, so sad, Imam. He's asking for help from these people. Oh, someone come and help me. You think someone he's looking to one of them as his savior? No, of course not. But he still looks to himself as their Imam. هل من ذاب يذب عن حرم رسول الله. Says someone here to protect the sanctity of the Prophet's family. What is that? What is he doing, the Imam? The Imam is awakening the hearts. He's making it plain to them. Remember, you took this oath of becoming Muslim? Remember those two statements that you uttered? You gave Shahada, you bore witness to that? Remember you said you were going to follow the teachings of your Prophet? Remember your Prophet said these things? What did your Prophet come and do for you? He didn't teach you to bow and prostrate. He didn't just teach you to go in this direction counterclockwise against this structure. He didn't just tell you to stop eating from this time to that time. He didn't just tell you to read these things. He came to be in relationship with you so you understand the welfare of one another. If you're Muslim, how can you allow something like this to happen? Look, we're saying something different now. We're saying something different now. What is the Imam drawing our attention to? Because you and I are seeing things too. How would the Imam make it plain for us? And in the coming nights, I'm going to share, the statements of the Imam are so explicit. So that building of community, and we'll speak about leadership. The leader is the Imam Zamana, the Imam of our time. We know that already. What is the Imam doing to make it plain for us? He's telling us, brother, sister, it's about these things, but it's more than that. It's about being in a relationship with one another. Because we can have these majalis and coming together over and over and over again, but if the hearts are broken, not just for the pain of Ahlul Bayt, because every heart will break hearing the pain of Ahlul Bayt, but the heart is broken for some other reason, and you and I can do something about it, but we're not, that breaks the heart of the Imam. Because he said that was the whole point. The whole point was for you to love each other. The whole point was for you to be in that journey together. The Prophet said, we were exiled and we went to Shaykh Abi Talib. We had 3 tough years there. You all will have that too. Don't run away from it. Be there to support one another. That's what we're doing when we're building community. It's not just putting up these buildings. You've done a fantastic job. May you continue that. But there's a building that's being built in that heart. If that's dilapidated and we don't do something about it, these physical structures won't matter. Because we'll find ourselves in a situation where we are in that scene. We are in that scene. Tens of thousands of people were there in Karbala. They were all watching. They were all watching. Some of them couldn't even look. They had to look away. But the heart sometimes becomes so hard. Remember we talked about the inversion of good and evil? They see something so painful. They're drawn towards that. Think of the problems of the world, my brother and sister. Start in your family, the heartbreak that exists. If we could fix things, what would we do? And then continue to go beyond and beyond and beyond and beyond in the world. What's happening in this world? And what are you and I doing about it? And what are we supposed to do when we get together these nights? If we can just dim the lights and recite a few minutes of Musibah. On this first day of Muharram. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. حسين 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 Ya Abu Abdullah, we got permission from your mother, Lady Fatima, to enter your majlis. My brother and sister, remember when you go for ziyarah, before you enter any of the haram of the Ma'asumeen, we must request permission to enter. We must bid farewell when we're leaving. The permission of entry, the permission of exit. It's an etiquette the Ahlul Bayt taught us. It's an instruction the Quran gives us. We spoke of community, we spoke of love, we spoke of care. Compare these two scenes. When the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, enters Medina, how is he welcomed? طلع البدر علينا. The people celebrated his entry. One after another they wished they could house the Prophet. When Hussein is leaving Medina, how is he leaving? Are the people there to see him off and help him? فخرج منها خائفا يترقب. He leaves the city fearful, vigilant. But even then Hussein does not forget his etiquette. He goes to request permission to leave Medina. At the grave of his grandfather Rasulullah, Hussein ibn Ali comes to bid his farewell, to request permission. You know what they've done to me. You know why I'm leaving. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. And al-Hussein ibn Fatima. Here comes your beloved grandson. أنا فرخك وابن فرختك وسبتك في الخلق الذي خلقت على أمتك. I was that grandson that you told so much about. So much of this community observed your love for me. فاشهد عليهم يا نبي الله. You be a witness against what they did, my dearest prophet. إنهم قد خذلوني وضيعوني وأنهم لم يحفظوني. They tried to belittle me. They abandoned me. They didn't protect me or my family. The Imam stood for prayer in prostration, in ruku. The second night they say the Imam returns to the Prophet. One more time. Allahumma inna hadha qabru nabiyika Muhammad. Wa ana ibnu bint Muhammad. وقد حذرني من الأمر ما قد علمت. اللهم إني أحب المعروف وأكره المنكر. By Allah, I like the good and I forbid the evil. I cannot stand to live in this world. وأنا أسألك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام بحق هذا القبر ومن فيه ما أخترت من أمر هذا ما هو لك رضي. Ya Allah, whatever you have ordained for me, whatever you have planned for me, I accepted. رضا برضاك تسليما لأمرك. As the Imam is leaving, he bids his final farewell. بأبي أنت وأمي يا رسول الله لقد خرجت من جوارك كرها. I'm not happy that I'm leaving your side. وفرق بيني وبينك حيث أني لم أبايع لهذا الظالم شارب الخمور راكب الفجور وها أنا خارج من جوارك على الكراهة فعليك مني السلام. This is how Hussein bids his farewell from the Prophet as he leaves Medina. But Hussein's etiquette is always there. On the night of Ashura, he bids farewell from his family. On the day of Ashura, in the last moments that Hussein is breathing, he's still bidding farewell. That is the etiquette of my Imam, even in those final moments, even with those final breaths. He is thinking of others, he is thinking of his family. Ya Sahib az-Zaman, I know how much you think of me, I know how much you care for me, I know how much you love me. I'm sorry, forgive me by the right of your grandfather, forgive me of my shortcomings, allow me to reciprocate that love. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. ماتم حسین.
Brother Jari and Brother Hassan Rizvi for Matam, please.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Sughra ko rulata hai ye chand Muharram ka, Sughra ko rulata hai ye chand Muharram ka, Sughra ko rulata hai ye chand Muharram ka, Sughra ko rulata hai ye chand Muharram ka. Jab सामने आता है, जब सामने आता है ये चांद मुहर्रम का, सुगरा को रुलाता है ये चांद मुहर्रम का, सुगरा को रुलाता है ये चांद मुहर्रम का, सुगरा को रुलाता है ये चांद मुहर्रम का. हम सूरत ज़हरा से भाई के बिछड़ने की, खातून क़यामत से घर बार उजड़ने की, घर बार उजड़ने की दाद सुनाता है ये चांद मुहर्रम का, सुगरा को रुलाता है محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا کاٹا ہے گلا لوگوں سحروز کے پیاسے کا پامال ہوا لاشا احمد کے نواسے کا احمد کے نواسے کا ہر ایک کو بتاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا تصویر دکھاتا ہے احمد کی جوانی کی ہر شخص کو دنیا میں کربل کی کہانی کی کربل کی کہانی کی تفسیر بتاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا کربل کی زیارت کو جو آنکھ تڑپتی تھی شبیر تیرے غم میں جو آنکھ برستی تھی جو آنکھ برستی تھی اس آنکھ کو بھاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے یہ چاند محرم کا صغرا کو رلاتا ہے حسین حسین سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار 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 میں تیرا دین بچاؤں گا اے میرے نانا میں اپنا خون بہاؤں گا اے میرے نانا حسین جاتا ہے مرنے حسین جاتا ہے مرنے سلام ماں کے مزار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار میری شریک سفر بن کے ساتھ چل اماں سفر پہ جاتا ہوں کپڑے میرے بدل اماں لباس خود سجا دے لباس خود سجا دے بدن پہ پھر ایک بار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار دعا کرو چمن پہ نہ آئے میرے چمن پہ ستم کی گرد و غبار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار دیے جلانے کو نانا تمہارے روزے پر ضرور آئے گی سغرا ہر ایک شام و سحر خدا کرے رہے روشن خدا کرے رہے روشن سدا تمہارا مزار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار تمام پھول سے بچے ہیں اور گرم ہوا ہمارے خون کی پیاسی ہے فوج ظلم و جفا سفر میں کوئی شجر بھی سفر میں کوئی شجر بھی نہیں ہے سایہ دار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار سلام نانا کے روزے سلام ماں کے مزار یا حسین یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین وہ عابد بیمار تھا وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا تھی مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی سینے پہ جو شاہ کے پری سینے پہ جو شاہ کے پری یہ وارن میں جلی جس کی ابارن میں جلی منہ پر تماچوں کے نشان مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
Jazakallah, brother. Inshallah, brother, we have about 3 minutes for the azan, so please get ready with your wuzu. Inshallah, we'll have Salat al-Maghrib at 8:34.
Absolutely brilliant, mashallah, mashallah. Thank you so much, sir. You've completely changed the lens. I look at Islam and just a bit like this, and look at Prophet like this. Amazing, mashallah, mashallah. That is brilliant, brilliant. And so each word was chosen properly. Each word was heavy duty, and I loved it. And I think the statement to the kids that it is not a fact. You know, we